All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Torah Studies. This is our look at the Torah portion, but this week we're not looking at the Torah portion. Can you imagine a Torah Studies class not covering the Parsha? It's basically a scandal. It's basically a shanda. I'm kidding, it's not. What it is a class all about the holiday of Purim. Or as I like to say, the reason why it's called Purim is because you're supposed to say a little l'chaim, and then, of course, you tell the bartender, pour him another one. Pour him. Okay, good to see everyone. Tonight, we're going to talk about the kind of the cause of the problem with the story of Purim. Can we say that? I think when we think about the story and the holiday, the story of Purim, which is retold in the book of Esther, that we read on the holiday, and that is, captures a whole energy theme, of the holiday. I think that we often focus on the miracle of salvation, Esther being the queen who's Jewish, and it's amazing, wow. But I want to focus tonight on the danger. And what was the root of the danger? How did that danger start? What was it all about? Because I think it's very instructive for all time, but especially in 2026, especially in our time. So let's go back for a moment. And I want to, right at the beginning, pose a very interesting analysis. And that is that one could argue that in the times of the story of Purim, or shortly before that, there was never a better time for the Jewish people under foreign rule. I mean, think about it. So the Jews had, let's think about right before the decree was, right around the time of the story of Purim. So the Jews were living comfortably in the Persian Empire. Okay, so that's one. We don't find any, obviously the story brings up some challenges, but otherwise we don't find it being a very tumultuous time with a lot of decrees against Judaism, it seems like a pretty calm situation, number one. Number two, we find that Mordechai was one of the king's advisors. He was one of Achashverosh's advisors. He was literally one of those who was, had the ear of the king. And the Megillah tells us that he would sit at the king's, at the palace gates. So he was clearly connected. And he was the head of the Jewish community. So imagine the head of the Jewish community is also plugged into the government. Great. To top it all off, the queen was Jewish. Now you would think
They didn't know that, did they?
No, but I'm just saying, in general, the queen was Jewish. Now, not at the beginning of the story, the queen was Vashti, but then she was deposed, killed, executed, whatever. That's, again, read the Megillah for more information. And then Esther becomes queen. And so you have a Jewish queen. And so it seems like, a Jewish queen, Jewish advisor, one of the advisors is Jewish, relative comfort in the land, very well connected. What could possibly go wrong in these circumstances? It would seem that, everything was very comfortable. Everything was good. And there would be a lot of sense of, complacency, relief, whatever the word is, but a lot of like an exhale of all right, we don't have our own land. We don't have our own sovereignty, but it could be worse. But then you have, at that moment in time, you have the worst decree in Jewish history. Now, thank God it didn't pan out.
Wait, Ari, wait. They were also invited to the university.
We're gonna get there. Yeah, we're gonna get there. Good. But the point is that this was a time of what would appear to be great connections, and yet at the same time, it was the worst decree in Jewish history. To explain and to contextualize how severe the decree was, and again, thank God it didn't pan out. But there was a decree that was approved by the king himself, stamped with the royal seal, signed, sealed, delivered to, God forbid, annihilate every Jewish man, woman, and child in the kingdom. And just so you know, all Jews on planet Earth lived under this king's rule. There was no other place to go. And it was to happen in one day. Men, women, children, never before and never after was there such a severe decree with no escape. It was horrific. And the Jewish people lived with that decree for a while. I mean, it was set for almost a year out, but it was it's unfathomable to think about this this type of horrific decree hanging over the heads of the Jewish people. And the question that may be asked, and maybe you and I can't ask this question because it sounds a little like how would you even answer the question? So why would you ask it? The question is, why did this happen? And again, you and I would say, why did it happen? I don't know. Why did bad things happen? It happens all. We don't know God's ways. But the Talmud, the great book of Jewish law, Jewish ethics, Jewish thought, the Talmud asks that audacious question, or records a dialogue in which that very question is asked. The question of, why did this decree befall the Jewish people? And the answer is shocking. So tonight we're going to explore it, the question, mainly the answer, and try to explore what it means for us today and what lessons we can take from it. So let's begin. Ramon, I'm going to ask you to please begin in just a moment. Let me pull up this PDF with the text for myself and everyone joining online. Give me one moment. And we are going to get started. Okay, Ramon, please take it away. Text one. That just to highlight where the source of text one is. Talmud, Megillah 12a. Megillah is the tractate, the book of the Talmud that deals with the holiday of Purim. Megillah, the scroll of Esther. Okay, take it away, please.
The students of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai asked him, for what reason were the Jewish people in that generation deserving of annihilation? Rabbi Shimon said to them, you tell me. They said to him, it is because they enjoyed the feast of that wicked one, Suris. He responded, this might be true for those in Shushan, but those in the rest of the world who did not participate in the feast, why should they have been killed? They said to him, then you tell us. He said to them, it is because they prostrated before the idol.
Okay, so let's break this down. So we have Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who is one of the greatest Torah scholars of all time. He is the author of the Zohar, the primal work of Kabbalah. He was a wanted man by the Romans for teaching Torah and spreading Judaism at a time when that was forbidden by the Roman government. And so he hid in a cave for 12 years, and then the 13th year. And I mean, he lived just an incredible life, an unbelievable life, a tremendous scholar. And his students ask him the following question. Why did the Jews deserve annihilation? That's a crazy question.
Yeah, especially because it's not like the decree actually
happened. So it didn't happen.
So it wasn't as if they deserved it.
Right. So the question is, but why do they deserve even the potential? See, I think the way they're understanding it is that the decree meant that they deserved it. The salvation meant that they fixed it. Yeah. Okay. But it was hanging over their heads. So the question is, what could they have possibly done to deserve such a thing? That's the question. Okay. And again, you and I would never ask that question. Because we're going to start blaming the victims. We don't do that. Apparently, the Talmud does on some level, addresses this. The Talmud asks bold questions and, as we'll see, gives bold answers.
Sins against God.
So take a look at what they say. So the rabbi says to the students, so you tell me. And say, okay, because they enjoyed the feast of the wicked one, meaning the king Ahasuerus. That's the way the story of the book of Esther begins, with a 180-day feast and then a 7-day after party, and Jews participated in that. And so the rabbi responds, yeah, well, maybe the Jews of Shushan participated, but what about the Jews in the rest of the world, meaning the rest of the Persian Empire? What did they do? So he says, okay, they bowed down before the idol. What we're going to do tonight is we're not going to focus on the bowing down to the idol, the prostrating before the idol. That means bowing all the way down to the idol. We're not going to focus on that. No, and that's not even a reference of something that happened at that time. It happened much earlier, decades earlier, with another king and whatever. So that is something that we are going to save for maybe another time. But we're going to focus on this line right here. It is because they enjoy the feast of that wicked one. And the question we're going to ask tonight is, what does that even mean? And yes, the rabbi said, oh, it's not such a great answer. But I have another question, and that is, just because you go to a feast, that is a thought to deserve annihilation? Going to a feast? Like, what's so wrong? What's so bad about going to a feast? What's the big deal? Now, you might say the following. You might say, well, maybe the feast, maybe it wasn't a kosher feast. First of all, okay, still the question remains, because someone goes to a non-kosher banquet, so deserving the entire nation, men, women, and children of annihilation, it doesn't make any sense. Second of all, that doesn't even hold water, because the Megillah tells us that at the feast, everyone was given the food and the drink that they wished, which would imply that there was also kosher. You know, like when you go on an airplane, I don't know. I guess they only serve meals on like very far international flights, but like you order the kosher meal and they bring out like if you have experience with this, you know what I'm talking about. Like they bring out like a wrap meal and it's like frozen and you're like, I don't even know what's happening. Like, what, you know what? We're good. It's fine. I'll have the water, you know, that sort of, but at this meal, it says Kirtzon ish v'ish. They had food and beverage as the desire of every person, of all the attendees, which implies they had a kosher caterer also. At least they did a little drop-off service. I don't know, they had kosher. So what does it mean that the students of the Rashbi said, we know why they deserved annihilation, because they enjoyed the feast of that wicked one. What does that even mean? Boggles the mind.
The nature of the feast. The nature of the party.
I have another question. Look back at the text. Look what the text says. It doesn't say because they ate at the feast. What does it say?
They enjoyed it.
They enjoyed the feast. And the question is, what does that mean they enjoyed the feast? They ate the food? It's not, wait, so you're telling me that, again, going back to the potential, like our first thought is maybe it's a kosher issue. You're telling me that the issue is not what they ate, but that they enjoyed eating it? And if they didn't enjoy it, it would be fine? I hate this not kosher stuff. All right, then it's fine. If you didn't like it, then you're off the hook. What does that mean? What's actually going on over here? What's the issue with the feast? What's the issue with enjoying the feast? What does that mean? It's a good question. It's not my question, but it's a good question. I'm asking it tonight. I'm not the one that came up with the question. It's a very good question. In fact, the Alshich, who lived some 400 or 500 years ago, asked the question. Take a look at text number 2. Toba, please read. 1 second. Let me pull this up. Please read text number 2. This is going to be on page 132. It's a quick 3-liner.
It's worth asking about the answer. Because they enjoyed, etc. Is it possible that for the pleasure of the meal they should deserve annihilation?
What does that even mean? They enjoyed the meal. You're all goners. God forbid. What does that mean? They enjoyed the meal? Crazy talk. Okay. So in order to understand this, what we're going to do is we're going to analyze a very interesting dialogue that takes place between the Roman Caesar Hadrian and one of the great sages of the Mishnaic era. So he probably lived in the 1st century of the Common Era, like 2,000 years ago, or maybe the 2nd century. Yeah, so it's a long time ago. So, and this is recorded in Esther Rabbah, which is one of the Midrashic texts on the book of Esther, written, compiled in the 6th century. Okay, so 1,500 years ago, recording a story that happened centuries prior between one of the Caesars of Rome and Rabbi Yehoshua. I'll read this one. I guess we're up to me. Okay, the Caesar Hadrian said to Rabbi Yehoshua, "Great is the sheep that stands among 70 wolves." Rabbi Yehoshua replied, "Great is the shepherd who saves it and breaks the wolves before them." So let's understand what this dialogue is actually about. So first of all, the first thing you need to know is that they're not actually talking about sheep and wolves. Mm-hmm. Although I will say, there's a messianic prophecy in the book of Isaiah that talks about how in the future time, there's going to be so much peace pervading the world. It says the wolf shall lie with the lamb, right? And all these. So there's a restaurant, a kosher restaurant in New York, in Manhattan, called Wolf and Lamb. Now, I don't know, wolf is not a kosher animal, so I don't think they serve wolf. But nonetheless, it's the idea of the future. So, all right, back to the story. So Hadrian the Roman Caesar Hadrian asked Rabbi Yeshua, not asked, sorry, he exclaims, he was clearly a fan of the Jewish people. He's like, you guys are amazing. Great is the sheep. Oh, I forgot to mention, or I didn't mention, this is all allegoric, right? So there's the sheep is not a sheep and the wolves are not wolves. The sheep, the one sheep is a reference to the Jewish people, and the 70 wolves are a reference to the 70 nations that sometimes and historically have been a little sometimes unfriendly toward the Jewish people and Jewish existence. So says Hadrian, wow, the sheep is so amazing that it survives, that it's what's the language? That stands among 70 wolves, survives amid 70 wolves. Then the rabbi says to the Caesar, he's like, you think the sheep is so great? Nothing to do with the sheep. It's the shepherd. It's the sheep. It's the shepherd. There's a shepherd that's watching over the sheep and making sure that the wolves are kept at bay and that the sheep survives. What's he saying? He's saying that Jewish survival is a miracle. It's not natural. It's not like, oh, Jews are so smart and Jews are so clever that they've survived throughout the millennia, despite all attempts to the contrary. They survive because, wow, the sheep is so amazing. They're so crafty. It's not about the sheep being crafty. It's about there being a shepherd, right? It's been said, you want to believe in God, right? You want to have proof that God exists? Look at the fact that the Jewish people exist, because there's no other way about it, right? God creates a covenant with the Jewish people, and somehow, despite all odds, the Jewish people are still here. So it's the hand of God. It's the shepherd. It's not the sheep. Sheep can't take the glory. It's the shepherd. Now, what this does is it clarifies something very powerful. And that is that it becomes important to recognize that Jewish existence is not something that is natural, is not something predicated on the laws of nature, not something that can have a rationale that makes a lot of sense. Oh, yeah, I understand how the Jewish people survive. It's rather something supernatural, miraculous, something that defies logic, defies explanation. This is articulated beautifully by the Maharal of Prague, the great Rabbi Yehuda Loy, who shares an insight as to the connection between the mitzvot, the laws of the Torah, and the idea of the Exodus, basically saying that, and we'll read it inside, but just to kind of like kind of lead into it, give like a prelude. So the Exodus symbolizes this notion that the Jewish people are around, and their very existence, their nationhood, is by divine miracle. And that's every time we do a mitzvah, we celebrate the fact that there's a God that is watching us, a God that is caring for us, a God that is allowing us to survive and exist. And therefore, the mitzvah is an expression of thanksgiving, of gratitude for that connection to the great shepherd that protects our very survival. So, Ramon, please read text number 4. This is from the Maharal of Prague. And here, take a look at how he explains. It's really a quote from Deuteronomy, but it's also found in the Passover Seder. So take it away.
When your son asks you tomorrow, what are the testimonies, laws, and commandments? In Deuteronomy 6:20, you should answer, be 21:24. We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and God brought us out, and he commanded us. This is teaching us that because we were slaves in Egypt and God took us out with a mighty hand, it shows that Israel is different from the other nations. The mitzvot aren't designated for other nations because spiritual matters don't mix with physical ones. But the Jewish people, whom God miraculously brought out of Egypt, is apart from the material world. That's why we're worthy of divine law, while the other nations are not.
It's very interesting. He says, look, the whole survival of the Jewish people is miraculous and therefore and supernatural. So therefore, there is this law that is spiritual law. It's like don't mix wool with linen, and all of the laws of ritual purity and impurity that are spiritual laws are applicable to a nation whose survival is completely miraculous. And that's kind of the connection. Now, once you understand that, we can immediately get into an understanding of what the big deal was. Of what the big deal was with going to that feast. And I think it's very important to kind of develop this idea. Before we get to the feast idea, what we're suggesting is that there's this miraculous protection. But as the commentaries point out, and we're going to read this as a quote from the Rabbi soon, it almost presupposes that the sheep recognize that the shepherd is in charge. Imagine, okay, so let's try this out for a second as a thought experiment. Imagine the sheep would have the power of cognition and communication and say to the shepherd, hey, why don't you go to the store and get another staff? I don't know, what do shepherds need in their job? Just a stick, right? I think so. I think it's a very basic, it's like basketball. All you need is a basketball and then you're ready to go. It's not like hockey. Oh, by the way, I was in Canada Sunday morning.
For the loss.
I would say the victory.
Well, yeah.
It's like a little, that was like a whole thing. I mean, I don't like, look, I'm a proud American. Love Canada also. But I think there's something special about being in Toronto while USA. A nice Jewish boy from Orlando. Yeah, he's a Jewish kid, you know that, right? Anyway, that was great. Pretty wild.
That was great.
And I'm thinking, like, in Canada, all the billboards are like about hockey. In America, on ESPN.com, it's like the 10th sport down. Unfortunately, because hockey is a great sport. Back to the story. USA. Okay, back to the story. So here we go. Imagine the sheep says to the shepherd, look, I don't need you. I don't need you. You know why I don't need you? I made a deal with the wolves. I made a deal. We have an understanding. We have an agreement. We have a treaty. We have a document. We have a handshake. We have an understanding. We got this. Like, I don't need, you've been amazing up until now. Thank you, shepherd. We're going to have a going away party. We'll, make you a cake. Best shepherd ever. Woo! Team Shepherd. Love you, Shepherd. Right? Little heart to love the Shepherd. Heart situation that the kids do nowadays. Like, love you, Shepherd. But we're good. We don't need shepherds anymore. We don't need shepherds because we got this. Like, we've spoken to the wolves and we're good. Like, we're good. Like, yes, maybe in ancient times or, in yesteryear in the old country, we needed a shepherd. We don't need a shepherd because everyone's cool. Like, the wolves don't hate us anymore. Like, we're cool with the wolves. The wolves are cool with us. It's all good, peaceful relations, and shepherd, see you later. What do you think the shepherd would say? Okay, you got this? Got this. You sure you got this? Got this. Yes, got it. You know the story of the poisonous...
The scorpion and frog.
Scorpion! What is it? The scorpion frog?
Yeah.
What is the story? And it needs to go across.
Yeah, and it takes it across.
Yeah, but who's on top? Who's underneath it?
I think there's
the frog.
Yeah.
There's a scorpion and a frog. All right, this is it's a parable it's a collaborative parable. My favorite type. There's a scorpion that needs to get across the water, but scorpions don't float. How do I know this? Because that's what how the parable goes. How would I know if a scorpion floated? What do I look like? A scorpion expert? I have no idea what that is. I'm a hockey guy. I'm not a scorpion expert. Back to the story. So the scorpion. So there's a frog. So the scorpion says to the frog, "Do me a favor. You're going across anyway. I'm going to hop on your back, and that's it. You'll take me across. What's the big deal?" The frog says, "Nice try. You're gonna poison me and kill me." The scorpion says, "Why would I do that?" And the frog says, "Because you're a scorpion." Scorpion says, "Yeah, but think about this. I'm gonna be on your back, which means that if I poison you and you die, I'm gonna sink and die. Like, why would I do that? That's insane. I would never do that," says the scorpion. So the frog says, well, if you put it that way, fine. Frog makes its way with the scorpion on its back across the pond. Halfway through, the scorpion stings the frog. The frog's final words are, what are you doing? And the scorpion says, "I'm a scorpion. I mean, this is like, I'm just a scorpion." when the sheep says to the shepherd, I got this, peace out. I don't think anyone says that for like 30 years. But if they would bring that back, right, and say, we're good, right? So the shepherd might say, okay, all right, then you're on your own. And what might happen then? At some point, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but at some point, the wolves might attack again. Until the sheep remembers, my survival is not because of my political savvy or my ingratiation, I don't know if that's a word, with others and my diplomatic skills and my blah, blah, blah. But it was really the shepherd the whole time. And I kind of, shepherd? Texting the shepherd, need you now. How soon can you get here? All right. Make sense so far?
Yes.
All right. You should see the answers starting to formulate. All right. Toba, I'm going to ask you, please, to read. Give me a second. Yeah, let me pull this up so I can see it as well. Yeah, text 5.
The situation of the Jewish people among the nations is sometimes such that their existence is a miracle beyond the natural order. It's like a sheep standing among 70 wolves. There's no natural place for its survival. But by God's grace, the great shepherd, he saves and protects them with miraculous supernatural guidance. However, this only applies when the Jewish people are under special divine protection. In that case, the 70 wolves can't touch them. This protection is maintained as long as their behavior reflects trust in God, relying on him to save and protect them. But when they reject this protection, behaving in a manner that values the wolves and their natural powers, they essentially remove themselves from God's miraculous care. They place themselves under the natural order.
And so, as the Rebbe points out, it's kind of like this. There's two systems. There's the natural system and the miraculous system. And you just choose a lane. It's like, how would you like to operate today? You want to operate by miracles or by nature? And so miracles would be where the shepherd's watching you miraculously and protecting you when the 70 wolves. Nature is, well, we brought each other bunt cakes. Bunt cake? Is that a thing? Bunt cake? I think. Bunt cake. Bunt, like in baseball. Bunt cake. So right, we bought each other bunt cake. Like, we're good. So like nature says, we're fine. We're not going to kill each other. Okay, great. So it's kind of like choose a lane. And so if the Jewish people choose the supernatural lane, meaning the God protection lane, God says, like Friends. Remember Friends? I'll be there for you. Right?
That was a good.
You remember that?
Yeah, that's a good series.
It's a fantastic theme song. When the rain starts to fall, I'll be right. God says, I'm there for you. I got you. I'll take care of you. And then if the Jewish people say, hey, God, we don't need you. We're actually very good. We got this. Natural means. God says, you want to run by nature? Run by nature. Unfortunately, it doesn't always turn out so well, which we'll see in a moment. Take a look at text 6a. In case you think this is some sort of newfangled idea, you should know that this is something that Maimonides, the great Rambam, writes about in his Guide for the Perplexed, which is a book of Jewish philosophy. And this is what he writes. This is top of page 137. God's supervision, that's the hashgacha, meaning God's divine providence, is constant for all those who strive to reach him. When a person focuses their thoughts on God and follows the true paths he has laid out, rejoicing in what they have attained, no harm can come to that person. They are with God and God is with them. But when a person turns their thoughts away from God, becoming separate from him, then God becomes distant from him or her. At that point, the person becomes vulnerable to all sorts of misfortune that could befall them. This belief is confirmed in the Torah. God says, I will hide my face from them and they will be devoured. They will find many evils and troubles, and they will say on that day, is it not because our God is not with us that these evils have found us? It is clear that we cause God to hide his face. We are the ones who create the veil between us and him. So it's clear that the reason a person might be exposed to misfortune, like an animal subject to fate, is because he or she is separated from God. But someone whose God is with him, no harm will touch them. God's supervision will stay with them, and all evils will be kept away. And I have to emphasize something that I think might be bothering you and might be bothering me, which is it sounds a little petty. It sounds like God is saying, well, if you like me and if you pay attention to me, then I'll pay attention to you. But if you don't pay attention to me, I'm going to pay attention to you. If you unfriend me, then I'm going to unfriend you, and we're back to high school. And I'm the biggest, I'm a fan of Gossip Girl like everyone else. But I mean, is that what we're, sorry for the old reference, but is that what we're actually talking about here? Are we actually talking about something as petty as, well, God says, you didn't invite me to your simcha, I'm not inviting you to my, is that really what's happening? Again, I think we have to think about this on a more elevated sense, because God does create both pathways. God creates a path of nature, and God creates a path of the miraculous. And the question is, which do you choose? Because one of the things that we know that Kabbalah, Jewish spirituality, mysticism emphasizes again and again is that God, in fact, there's a verse that says, Hashem tzilcha, God is your shadow, which implies something like beyond magnificent, that God follows our lead. This is like dancing with the stars, but we're the one who's leading, and in this case, the star would be God, right? We lead the dance. So God says, how are we going to operate? Are we going to operate by nature or by the miraculous? And so if we opt into the miraculous, God says, all right, supernatural protection. But if we opt into the natural, God says, you sure you want this? Yeah.
And sometimes they choose the dance. Who said that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said it.
Yeah.
That's really good. On the other hand, or in addition, all these horrendous pogroms in like 1492 in Spain and throughout Europe and the Holocaust, you're going to say that all these 6 million people chose not to.
So you're asking about suffering and why bad things happen, and historically pogroms and the Holocaust and everything. Okay,
No,
I'm going to go back.
Contradictory to
I'm
this
with you. I'm going to go back to what I said before, which is that if you and I were to ask the question, why did evil befall a people or evil befall our people or whatever it is, you and I would have to say, we don't know and we can't understand God's ways. And our only response is to cry and also to make sure that it never happens again. The daring thing is that the Talmud speaks about this. I don't think the Talmud is having this conversation, which we'll explore, but we're going to bring it back to the Talmud in a second, in order to tell us how we should respond to explaining suffering and making sense of it, but rather to teach us a fundamental truth about how the system operates. Now, how we apply it to then point a finger, God forbid, at someone who experienced, or a large group that experienced, horrible tragedy, I think that's not what we ought to do. It sounds inconsistent because here the Talmud is doing this. Maybe the Talmud only did this, as you pointed out, because it did work out at the end. Right. But if it didn't, maybe the Talmud would never even dare to ask the question because it would be too painful and too wrong. Maybe when it does happen, we never say, well, it's because you abandoned God, so of course it happened. We wouldn't. Maybe it's only when it worked out, but we can analyze it kind of in the safe space and then apply it to our individual lives as a kind of motivation, as opposed to applying it kind of backwards to say as a reason for blame or whatever it is. And I know it sounds a little inconsistent because if it's true, it should be true. But I in my own head and my own understanding of this, I've never seen it being applied in any other context. So I think we're going to just have to create a bit of a divide, a bit of a wall, kind of like, okay, we're talking, the Talmud speaks about Purim and why that decree kind of happened. We can apply it to our lives, how we would apply it to 1492 or, 1930s, 1940s, or the 1940s. I think we're cautioned to not go to that place because it's not helpful.
It could also be more so like individual pathways
Yes.
versus a collective pathway.
Right. Although here although the Talmud is not about collective. But you're right. You're right, because I think it's going to be more instructive for us to internalize it individually, and then connect with Purim as the Talmud does, but not necessarily to other situations that are more collective. Right? But I like all these points. Good question. So now bring it back to this concept. It's important to recognize that this is not only true regarding the sheep and wolf kind of paradigm and understanding Jewish survival amidst so often hostility in the world against Jews. Let's put that aside for a second, because there's a really audacious teaching. One second. There's a really audacious teaching that I want to jump to. I'm going to go out of order. I'm going to get back to some text, but I want to read something right now because I'm inspired to read it. Text 10a. Who just read? You read? Okay, so I'm going to read. I'm going to read actually the next few. So take a look at text 10a. This is on page number 145. Okay? This is text 10a. This is from the Talmud. This is an audacious, daring statement that really needs a lot of context behind it because it seems kind of cray-cray. So here we go. It says the Talmud. What is emunah? What is faith? This refers to the Mishnaic order of Zerayim, agriculture. Now, just to explain, there are 6 orders of the Mishnah, meaning 6 large categories of laws discussed in the Mishnah. The Mishnah is a precursor of the Talmud. And one of them is called Zerayim, agricultural laws, meaning like, I don't know, if you were a farmer back in the day, these were the laws that you would need to know about leaving part of your field to the poor, not mixing seeds together. There's a lot of laws. It's a whole section of laws regarding agriculture. But it says emunah, faith, is a reference to these agricultural laws. And the question is, what does agriculture have to do with faith? Take a look at Tosfot, one of the commentaries on the Talmud. So he says, the Jerusalem Talmud, the other edition of the Talmud, explains, because one believes in the giver of life. One believes in the giver of life of the worlds and plants. And that translation is a little bit clunky, but it's so important. I mean, this, if you can keep this as a mantra, as a lesson for life, I mean, this is literally life changing. He says, the Talmud says, the Jerusalem Talmud explains, basically when you and I plant, there's 2 ways to plant. One way to plant, and I'm talking about literally like planting a seed in the ground. One way is to plant, and you're like, of course it's going to grow because that's how it works. You put a seed in the ground, and you water it, and there's sunlight, it's going to grow. It's like a no-brainer. But there's another way to plant, and that is that you plant the seed and you pray to God. And the question is, why are you praying to God? What are you doing? Why are you bothering praying to God? You don't have to have faith in God for something to grow. Things grow because they grow. Choose a system. Either your life is governed by nature or by the supernatural, and you and I get to choose. What does the supernatural mean vis-a-vis planting? If that's a natural thing, it means like this, that you plant and you believe that God, by virtue of divine miracle, is going to make it grow. Even though I planted, it's not the planting that makes it grow. It's a divine blessing that makes it grow. And that's the difference. And that's such a fundamental difference. You see, we could go through this world believing that I'm in control, or the world's in control, or nature's in control, or this person is in control, or that person's in control, or this nation's in control, or this stuff is in, or Hollywood's in control, or Wall Street's in control, or Madison Avenue's in control. All of these, or Rodeo Drive, we'll just cover all the coasts over here, right? All of these things are in control. And like when I plant, so the soil is in control, and then the Mother Nature is in control. Mother Nature, whatever that means. The Jerusalem Talmud is saying, you know what the Jewish way to plant is? Plant and pray. Not because you're paranoid, because you realize that the blessing of the growth is divine. It's God. You want to trust in nature? Trust in nature. But that's not our way. Our way is not to trust in nature. Our way is that we have faith when we plant. Even it's what a modern, because I haven't planted something in a while. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not like I don't know if I have a green thumb or two left thumbs. I'm
Man
not
of
sure
the
what I
field.
have. I'm not a man of the field. Not a man of the. I could be a man of the field, but I'm not. Currently, I'm not a man of the field.
I do.
It's kind of like, oh, fine, but so that works for you. But I'm just looking at the light switch over here. Imagine the Talmud would say this. There's two ways to hit the light switch, right? There's, you flick the light switch like a normal person, or you flick the light switch and you have faith in God. You're saying faith in God? It's electricity, bro. Like, what do you faith in God? This is not a miracle. This is neat. This is how it works. You created a circuit or something. I don't know. Turns out I'm not a farmer or an electrician. Two things that I'm not tonight. You're learning, but you're creating the circuit. The light goes on. Bada bing, bada boom. So what am I praying for? What I have faith for? Because you recognize that at the core of everything is God. God is at the core of everything. And all of this thing, so-called nature, it's all something that we do because God says, I want you to go through the motions, but really, right? But really, I'm taking care of business. So now I want to go back a little bit and fill this information in. And I'm going to read a text that is absolutely remarkable because I think it's really, really important to understand how this applies to our everyday activities. Take a look. Take a look at text number, it's a long one, 7. It's a good one, though. All right, this is the interplay between divine blessing and the work that we do to earn a living. This is literally talking about making money. Here we go. Take a look at this. This is potentially life-changing. It says, and God will bless you in all that you do. Now, that is a verse from Deuteronomy, but look at the duality of the verse. God will bless you. So where does the blessing come from? God. But in all that you do, what does that imply?
You have to do.
That implies we have to work. Okay, so hold on. Which one is it? Is it the work, the do, or is it God's blessing? Is it the bless or the do? So here we go.
Both.
Yeah. So it continues the text. The reason for this is that the flow of blessings in this world comes through the garment of nature. This means that the blessings are hidden and concealed in such a way that it seems, look at that word seems, like the world runs according to natural law. But in truth, everything comes directly from God. However, he conceals his divine blessings so much that there's no clear revelation of anything miraculous or extraordinary. Everything appears as if it's just a natural occurrence. You know what that means? That means it looks like when you plant a seed, it should grow without any extra steps. But in truth, you know what's really happening? God is creating a miracle of growth every single time under the guise of, well, that's how it's supposed to work. That's not a thing it's supposed to work. Who said it's supposed to work like that? It's a miracle. Every time I turn on the light switch, that's my planting, by the way. I have replaced planting with light switch. Every time I hit the light switch, guess what? God is creating that reality of that connection of the power of electricity, the way the whole thing works. It's divine. Happens to take a hold of it takes a form of a natural occurrence, but it's really extraordinary and miraculous. Let's continue. The truth is, as stated in the verse, the wise do not have bread. Look at that. The wise do not have bread. Rather, it's for those to whom God commands his blessings and directs his providence, causing some to inherit and others to be enriched, some to be humbled and others exalted. Yet he only gives his blessings through the garment of nature. God is in control, but it's gotta come through the garment, through the guise, through the cloak of nature. So even when a person asks for mercy, praying that God will send them their livelihood, it's not enough to pray unless they also engage in business. You got to do also. They need to prepare the garment through their actions. By doing so, the blessings from above will flow through their work. These are the two intentions a person should have when engaging in business. First, to ask God for mercy, that his kindness be manifested in the world through the provision of his or her livelihood. Second, while engaging in business, to acknowledge that God's blessings are like other revealed miracles, similar to the manna and the like. However, he uses business as the garment to conceal his blessings. This is how God chooses to govern the world, and it will continue like this until the end of time. And this shares with us such a beautiful and powerful duality. And the duality goes like this. Everything is coming from God, and as such, might as well call it a miracle. The problem is, God doesn't really like showing up miraculously. God would rather not wire you money directly from the divine account
Or have
above.
money appear out of nowhere.
Yeah, or have like a check manifest, like, oh my God, what is happening? The manna from heaven was literally bread from heaven, that food from heaven that fell miraculously. God's like, I'm doing that once. I mean, over 40 years, but like that's a one-time deal. That's a one-shot situation. I'm not going to do that forever. Now you got to go to work and get money and then get wheat, right? And then mill it into flour and then mix that with whatever you mix it with, whatever your favorite recipe is to make bread. Y'all got to do that yourselves. I'm not getting involved. The more that God turns it over to nature, the more it seems like it's a natural occurrence. Well, it's all nature. I planted, so it grew. Of course. Why? Because that's how it works. That's how it works. That's how it works. Why does it work like that? Ask yourself, why does it work like that? Because that's how it works. It's God's miracle. It's just that we take it for granted. The point is that when we work for a living, it's also God's miracle that we get the blessing. It's just God says, I want it to not look like I'm doing it. I want it to look like that. But the clever person, the wise person recognizes it's manna from heaven. It's the same manna from heaven. It's just that he wants us to engage in the activity. He wants to go, not just go through the motions. He wants to go to work and earn a living and whatever. But it's not coming from us. It's coming from him. It's not coming. So the paycheck comes from our boss. I mean, sort of, but not really. It's really coming from God. It's coming through the garment or the medium of the boss, but it's not really coming through there. It's coming from God. Now, this opens our minds to this incredible idea that's very important, which is, well, then where do you put your focus on? And where do you focus the attention on? It's a truth, a Jewish truth and a mystical truth and a Kabbalistic truth that recurs again and again and again in mystical thought. And it's the idea that over-investing in the garment is a fool's errand. I think that's the phrase for it. 8a, text 8a. Do you know what it's like when, this is the Rebbe writes this, do you know what it's like when someone runs a business without realizing that it's God's blessing that brings success? It's like someone who spends all their energy sewing little pouches to hold money, but doesn't actually do anything to earn it. Meaning you're creating the vessel, but you're not focusing on the source of the blessing itself. So work, and that's going to generate the gelt. Meanwhile, the gelt only comes from the source. So it's about investing in the source. Now, on a very practical level, a practical ramification of this would be imagine if somebody says, I would love to take some time each day to pray, but I can't. I got to go to work. So this teaching would say, do you hear yourself? Why do you need to go to work? To make money? Where do you think that money's coming from anyway? Like, where is that actually coming from? It's coming from God. So it's coming from God. He says, do me a favor, do the whole work thing. Give me a cover story to get. I want to get this to you. Create a cover story, create a front so I can launder this money to you. We're not suggesting illegal activity for this class, by the way, not at all. But right, God says, create a front so I can get the money to you. And then we're like, oh, I got this, God. Sorry, I can't deal with you, God. I'm busy creating the front. God's like, why'd you create the front? I told you to do that. How are you not even remembering that I was the one that said that you need to do this so I can give you the thing? This is my blessing. What's going on? How did you lose the plot? So the point is, it's critical to recognize that okay, here's the point. Just keeping the same duality that we had before in this class. Miracles or nature. Choose your adventure. Do you want to take the nature route and say, oh, it's my planting, it's my, planting prowess. It's not even a word. It's my electrician prowess. It's my work prowess that does everything. That's the natural approach. And that's not accurate. The real approach is God's in control. It's God's miracle. Yes, we help facilitate or whatever it is, but it's not that we're creating the blessing or creating the wealth or creating the electricity or creating the growth of the plant. This is something that's coming exclusively from God through my work, but it's not that my work is creating it. It's only the medium through which the blessing comes. So this now This now explains a lot about what happened on Purim to kind of precipitate the decree. And again, we're not conjuring this up. This is what the Talmud says, and so we're just explaining what the Talmud says about that story. And take a look at 8b, which is what we're up to right now. 8b, the Rebbe writes the following. This is really fantastic. It's really powerful. Of course, he says, living in exile under the rule of the nations, we must show respect for the government. The law of the land is the law, and as it says, seek the peace of the city and pray for it. So when Achashverosh summoned the Jews to his feast, they were obligated to attend, obviously sticking to what was allowed, like eating kosher food. That's not a problem. At the same time, they should have been clear-eyed that the Jewish people's existence doesn't depend on Achashverosh at all, even though he's wearing the crown. It depends entirely on God. This is the deeper meaning of the Talmud's indictment. They enjoyed the feast of that wicked one. Their attendance at the feast wasn't for the sake of respecting the king or anything like that. It's because they valued Achashverosh so highly that they mistakenly thought that their survival depended on his favor, a man firmly in opposition to God. That's the only possible explanation as to how they could enjoy such a feast. And I feel like I need to break this down because, as clear as it was, I feel like it's still leaving a little bit of the point hanging. Let me break this down very, as clear as I can, the way I understand this. What happened on Purim, or leading up to the decree? So Achashverosh was throwing this party. He's the king, and he says the Jews are invited to the party. And so, what was the reaction? Two possible reactions. Number one, God's in control of our protection. God is the shepherd, and we are completely in God's hands. Our survival is miraculous, and God provides the miracle. But God says, I want you to work through natural means. So we're going to work with diplomacy. And if the king invites us, we're going to go. Now, we're not going to violate God's will, meaning we'll eat kosher. We'll eat the Jewish diet at the feast, but we'll definitely go to the feast because God told us to go. Great. But that's not what happened. Mordechai could have gotten behind that also, but that's not what happened. You know what happened? They said, the king's inviting us. Fabulous. He likes us. This is a good relationship. Ooh, we'll be safe now. We've had all this persecution historically. We've had, the Egyptians that wanted to kill us, and the Babylonians that all of these, not wanted, the Egyptians tortured us, the Babylonians tortured us. Find the Persian Empire, a king who likes us. This is great. We're safe now because we're invited to the king's feast. The king's going to take care of us. You see what happened? They didn't say God's taking care of us, but he wants us to go to the feast and act like a man should, be respectful, so we're going to go. They said, they felt good. They enjoyed the feast, not the food. They enjoyed the invitation to the feast. They felt honored by it, and they felt protected by it because it means that we have this tight relationship now. And they felt like, we got this. And so essentially they said to the shepherd, we don't need you. We got the king. we got a date with the king. Achashverosh, we don't need the king of kings. We got a date with the king. And God says, you that guy? You want to, like, that guy? Yeah. We're so excited he invited us. Hold on. You're excited he invited? Why are you excited? You have to go to the feast because he invited you and you're part of the kingdom? Sure. But why are you excited? Because now he'll like us. And we'll be safe. Oh, wait, so you trust him? We trust him. God says, okay. All right. If he's got you, he's got you. I'll check out for a minute. And so, if he's got you, he's got you. And cut to the next scene. And the next scene is Haman. Speaking to Achashverosh, saying, Yesh am echad mufuzar mufura ben ha'amim. There's one nation scattered amongst your people that are different than everyone. Their language is different. Their customs are different. Let's get rid of them. And the king, the same king that invited the Jewish people to the feast, says, okay, sure. And the shepherd's like, you got to be kidding me. That's the guy you trusted? That fickle king? That guy who, The way the wind's blowing, he'll change his mind. He'll be like, oh, I don't need him, actually. I invited them because who knows why, but I'll get rid of them because who knows why. Like, that's who you're trusting. You're going to trust the wolf. You'll trust the scorpion. Like, that's a smart move. That's a terrible bet. So this answers all the questions. We asked before, how could the Talmud suggest that the decree was due to going to a feast? There's nothing wrong with going to a feast especially if there's kosher food. And and why did it say that they enjoyed it? Is there a problem with enjoying it? And our answer is, it wasn't about the food. It was about the entire perspective and the worldview of what our place in the world is, and which, honestly, it's like a channel. Like, which channel do you want to opt into? You want to opt into the miracle channel? Well, that's a cool channel. That's channel 770, right? Do you want to opt into the miracle channel, or do you want to opt into the nature channel? There might be something called the nature channel, actually. Discovery channel, nature channel, right? Which one do you want to opt into? And the Jews said, "Oh, we're going to opt into nature." God says, "All right, good luck." And when was to kind of, I think, touch on and answer the questions. So how did it end? Well, the Jews survived. How did they survive? Because the moment the decree hit, you know what they said? Whoops. We kind of lost our heads. Whoops. Totally forgot where our bread is buttered, as it were. And you know what they did? They fasted, and they prayed, and they studied, and they repented, and they did all the stuff to say, God, we don't want the wolves anymore. We want the shepherd. And God said, okay. And it's a reminder for us. And it's a reminder for us on so many levels. I spoke about this recently. I don't know that I want to speak about it again, but like the notion of, maybe it's Israel putting its eggs in the international basket. Did I even use that phrase correctly? I don't know if I did. Right? Israel saying that our survival will be based on other nations being nice to us. I don't know that you can do that. I don't think it's a wise move. Right? You want to trust? That's like it's a bad play. It only works as long as it works, and then it doesn't work. And then we're like, well, how come you didn't have our backs? And it's like, I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't be relying on human beings so much. And again, I'm not condemning. I'm not saying that this is why anything happened. I'm not, God forbid, I'm not blaming. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying it's a wake-up call. And you know what happens after something like the October 7th? Suddenly everyone comes out, and everyone's connected to each other, and everyone's connected with Hashem, with God Almighty, and everyone's Am Yisrael Chai, and everyone's singing songs, and everyone's connected spiritually, and it all comes out, and the truth comes out, but we forget the truth, and that's what happens. To make it personal in our own lives, I think all of us, it's natural and it's normal, and it's not a point of condemnation or shame or anything. It's something that we just have to be aware of and then kind of recorrect constantly. We all consistently fall into the trap of believing that our actions create the results, that the blessings are found in the hands of either ourselves or others, of human beings. And the truth is, it's not. Everything is in God's hands. Everything is in God's hands. There's a line in recovery that goes, let go and let God. And it's so true. Let go and let God means you're not in control. The illusion of control is the most painful thing of all. Because then you're like, why is it not working out? And it's like, you were never in control the whole time. You know what likens me to? You know what I liken it to? Remember you put like kids in one of those shopping carts that have like the steering wheel? And the kid's like turning it. And it's like, yeah, that's really not. And then like as a parent, you're like, oh, turn it the other way. You're like, oh, look at. And it's like, in truth, you're actually controlling the steering. Like, it's not. It's just a thing. It's supposed to look like we're turning the wheel. God's turning the wheel. But that relationship works when we are cognizant of this truth, that God is turning the wheel. That we're only doing the motions that He told us to do, but He's still maintaining control over the wheel. And so I've used this example before. It's been a while since I used it. Ask yourself the question. If you were in a car and there was a reckless driver Would you panic? Yes. You'd be like, get me out of here. But if you know God is at the wheel and you believe that God is good, then you can breathe a little easier. So it might be a little rough. I might not understand why we're doing this, but God's in control. God's got the wheel. Look, this is a lesson of life itself. The story of Purim is a story of life. The story of Purim is always remember this truth. God is behind the wheel. God is in control. Life itself is nothing but God's miracle. We're all the beneficiaries of the greatest miracle of all, the miracle of life. The miracle of all of this stuff. And we call it nature, and we convince ourselves that we're in control, and we're not. And the sooner we recognize that and acknowledge that, the better off we are, because we can let go a little bit or a lot, and we can experience the miracle that God wants us to have. I want to end. I want to see if there's another text that I would. It's not easy to let go. No. Oh, wow. I want to end with fire. You guys want some fire? Fire from the Rebbe's for Rangan from 1962. Okay, but by the way, before I read this, I got to tell you, I think of this all the time. Because like in school sometimes, they have like flag football games where they bring out like a bunch of kids. Or they have like a basketball, teachers versus students. And there's like PA, there's like announcers, and everyone comes out, and it's a whole situation. And you wonder, like, can we do that for Torah? Or is it only basketball? You with me on this? Can we do this for Torah? Because if not, you know what we're doing? We're saying that we value the medium of the secular education that gives us the tools to do the front more than the activity of connecting with the core. Are you with me on this? We got to know what's primary, what's secondary. It's so important. Not to say that you shouldn't have an education. Yes, education, but recognize where it fits in. So take a look at this. It's such a beautiful teaching, very powerful, very sharp. Give me 1 second here. This is going to be text 12. This is going to be our last text for today. All right? Oh, we're a little. 1 second. I don't know what happened to my situation over here. Hold on. I'm a little discombobulated. Text 12. The reason why I'm discombobulated is simply because I'm clicking the wrong buttons. It happens sometimes. Here we go. Now let me click the right buttons. Not to be confused with the Wright brothers. That's something else. The right buttons. Okay, this is text 12. We'll end with this. In yeshivot that feel compelled to include secular studies, and perhaps they are indeed obligated to do so, they have adopted the following standard. Even there, you have students who can recite dozens or hundreds of pages of Gemara or entire chapters of Mishnah by heart. They successfully keep mitzvot, etc., and yet nobody makes a big deal out of it. Not the yeshiva heads, not the teachers, not even the parents. How is this possible? Here's a child who knows 100 or perhaps even 200 pages, or maybe even entire books of Gemara, of Talmud by heart, and still nothing. But then comes the final exam, or better yet, a contest, as the state calls it. Then the school identifies one student who excels in subjects written by Shakespeare. And not only that, but he or she can discuss the material orally, whether it's grammar rules or the depiction of human traits and so on. The examiners then certify that they understand what Shakespeare innovated, what he accomplished in depicting the world, and suddenly there's a huge commotion. The yeshiva administration, along with the parents, make grand announcements. Every newspaper follows in their wake. This student, who could have been learning Torah all day long, has instead been introduced to the feast of that wicked one, whether it's Shakespeare or someone else. And he or she succeeded. So much so that even a non-Jew testifies, yes, they got it to the very end. Now, of course, you're required to study these things, fine. But what pleasure is there in the feast of that wicked one? Why take delight in there is wisdom among the nations, which indeed the Torah acknowledges in Midrash Eicha Rabbah? What's the great joy when a student knows what Shakespeare wrote? Why don't they? Shakespeare was also an anti-Semite, but that's another story. Why don't they? Yeah, Shiloh. Why don't they announce in the newspaper that so-and-so student can recite this or that number of pages of Gemara by heart? A student is a student, a child is a child. It's easy to imagine the impression he or she gets when they see others delighting in knowing this many lines of the works of that wicked one. But when it comes to Abaya and Rava, Rambam, the Rishonim, and Achronim, even down to the Ramah, crickets. The student may enjoy it, but without awe, without the proper sense of wonder. He or she will not announce it in the newspapers, nor will it earn them a car, and so on. Wow, who's getting a car for Shakespeare? That's impressive. But when it comes to the wicked one, the enjoyment knows no bounds. Here, the student gets a car. There, they're sent to the country. Here, they're placed at the head of the family of a family gathering, and the event is immortalized with photographs. And the Rebbe was speaking, and it was a very heartfelt and a very painful, as it were, kind of point. Meaning, we make a big deal about things that are secondary, not necessarily primary. Let's make a big deal about the primary. Let's not live our lives being so excited about the feast of Achashverosh. Let's be excited about a mitzvah. Be excited about Torah study. You and I are excited about Torah study, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you get a car. You get a car. You get a car. You get a car. I'm kidding. That's.
I guess that would cheapen it if we got cars for that, right?
Anyway, I think Oprah did that, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that thing? You get a car. You get a car. But he just said about cars and about Torah study, so I think it would be appropriate. Listen, I can't provide it. But may God grant everyone the blessings that they need, and God will, and it's up to us to hone in on that and to focus in on that, and to not get dissuaded or persuaded or tricked or fooled by what the world says, that you plant the seed and it grows, and we know better. You plant the seed, you pray, and it grows. A little bit different. How come it works for someone who doesn't pray? I don't know. Maybe because God wants to give free choice. But it works because it's the miracle. And we have a choice to plug into the miracle, plug into nature, and we all can strive for the miracle. All right, thank you for joining tonight. Hope this made sense. Hope you enjoyed it. I do want to make an announcement. We are starting a new course, Curious Tales of the Talmud, starting next Wednesday. So not a lot of advance notice, but you can enjoy this course coming up Wednesday, March 11th. Oh, I'm sorry, not next week. In 2 weeks' time. We have 2 weeks' time for this course, May 11th. Now, also very important scheduling announcement. Next Tuesday night, we are not having class. Why? Because it is this holiday, the holiday of Purim. And honestly, I got invited just today. I got an invitation to Achashverosh's feast, and I'm so excited. I'm kidding. No, that would be terrible. No, next week. I just got an invite today. I'm so excited. What am I going to wear? No, guys, listen. On a serious note, next week is Purim. It starts Monday. Monday is the fast of Purim. The fast begins in the morning, and it ends in the evening. It's like a 12-hour fast or so. Fairly, way more manageable than like Yom Kippur. Oh, Yom Kippur, yeah. This one is like, I just forgot to eat a few meals. Like, it's over. And then you break it with a hamantashes. That's really good. So Monday is the fast from the morning till the evening. You break it with the evening service and the Megillah, the reading of the Book of Esther. There's 4 mitzvahs on Purim. So first mitzvah is to hear the Megillah twice, Monday night and then Tuesday by day, anytime during the day. Find your local Megillah reading. Just type in local Megillah reading, zip code, and you'll find something. Here, I don't even remember the times, but just take a look. You'll find Megillah readings. So Megillah at night, Megillah by day. Second mitzvah is give tzedakah. We always give tzedakah, but give extra tzedakah on the day of Purim. The mitzvah is to give to 2 people or causes that are in need. So we give not just, generally we give specifically like to 2. And then the third mitzvah is to give 2 gifts of food to a friend. Find a friend, give them 2 gifts of food. The fourth mitzvah is to have a holiday feast on Purim day. So that would be Tuesday. And that usually rolls into the evening, which is why we're not having class. So next week's class, I am inclined to push it off to Wednesday. So it'll be a day later, but not $1 short. So that's good. I feel like that's good. Isn't that an expression, a day later, $1 short? Yeah, I think it is. So we'll do it next Wednesday. Not Tuesday, next Wednesday night.
Wait.
The JLI class, the Wednesday class is finishing. So the current Wednesday,
Finishes tomorrow?
yes, the current Wednesday class finishes
Okay.
tomorrow, and the new one is starting in
In
2
2
weeks.
weeks. So next
So
week will be
yes,
Tuesday.
I've created the perfect.
Very good.
God has helped me create the perfect scheduling over here, where we have that break. So we're going to do the Tuesday class on Wednesday. I'll send out an email as a reminder. Tuesday on Wednesday, and then we'll take it from there. All right, wishing everybody happy Purim. Chag Purim Sameach. If anyone needs any help or advice finding a Megillah reading or figuring out how to do the mitzvahs, reach out, and happy to help. All right, it's a little late, so we'll close it out. Thank you for joining. Good to see everyone. Lots of love and blessings. And we'll see you very, very soon. Good to see you.